Chicago.
Hello, and welcome to Bridging Chicago. I'm Ross Murphy, a law clerk at SATC Law, and your host for today's episode. On this episode, we welcome Kendall and Dashawn Hawthorne, the founders of Checago Coffee app, an app helping coffee lovers find a local coffee shop around Chicago. Kendall and Dashawn, welcome to Bridging Chicago.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We're excited to be here.
Yes.
We always like to start by hearing your Chicago story. So, can you tell us about how you came to be here in the Checago Coffee app? Were you born and raised?
Sure, I can start.
Yes.
So I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, Buckeye State. I moved to Chicago about 6 years ago. I was promoted here for a job opportunity, and that's how I got to Chicago. And when I first moved to Chicago, I was living in the Ravenswood community, close to Uptown. Now we live in Rogers Park, which we love. It's such a great community. There's so much diversity and just overall really family friendly. And so I started with the Checago Coffee app when I met Dashawn. We were co-workers at another job that I was working. I worked 2 jobs because Chicago's expensive. Yeah. And so I needed to work 2 jobs actually when I moved here. So I met Dashawn at my other job. And he was from Chicago, and he, said, I can show you around Chicago, let's show you all the cool spots. And so that's how we just started just hanging out, just being friends. And then 5 years later, we're married, and I'm a Chicagoan, I guess.
Yeah, because when I first met Kendall, and this is how you know when you found your one, we met each other, and we never left each other the very first day. I met her, like she mentioned, 6 years ago. And it was right during the World Series. So it was the Indians, the Cleveland Indians versus the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs. And I used to work at the stadium, by the way.
Oh, no way.
And so, everybody that's from Chicago is like, oh, this is my reason why the Cubs won this World Series. Or they finally got that goat out of here and things like that in that nature. So when Kendall asked to say, oh, take me around Chicago, I was like, I'm the perfect guy to do that. My nickname is DuSalvo. I know north, south, east, and west, state to lake, Kezi to, whatever, So when Kendall and I first met, I kind of gave her a bet. I was like, if the Cubs win, you got to give me a kiss because we're going against your hometown. I'm only joking. But, so, on my side of the story, I'm born and raised was born on the west side of Chicago. I was born in the house. I'm my mom's fourth child, so she just kind of spit me out and got it over with. And I was born on Chicago Avenue in Laramie. The house is still up there. I know I'm not like Kanye West. Nobody is guarding the house and oh, this is a famous landmark or anything like that. And not yet. Oh, well, we'll see. And from there, I was raised on the south side of Chicago. So I went to Ariel Community Academy. That's in Kenwood. I went to John Hope College Prep. That's on the south side. Inglewood, actually. I'm from Inglewood, born and raised. And a lot of my friends like to say mixed breed because you're from the west side of Chicago, but grew up on the south side of Chicago. And as Kendall mentioned, I came home with the Checago Coffee app idea, and she just ran with it. Yeah. And we'll get a little bit more in detail about it, but yeah, that's my Chicago beginning.
Wonderful. Yeah, you've really been all over the city then, huh? It's just you guys live in Rogers Park now, and you've been south side, west side. Yeah. Get to the east side if you need support.
That's true. Yeah.
Kendall, when you moved here, did you get a sense of how important Chicago neighborhoods were, and where and how different places lived?
Yes, I think I really learned as I was traveling around, experiencing different communities, bars, coffee shops, and just different neighborhoods. That each neighborhood had its own identity. Right. So Ravenswood, Uptown, I would say Uptown has a little more of an identity than Ravenswood. So Uptown area is a little more they have the theater, the Argonne Ballroom is there. They have the Uptown Theater. Well, it's historic, it's not there anymore. But there was just the different theaters, and just you have Andersonville really close by. So just different communities had different feelings to it, and you could be in a different place almost by just going a different block. And so Wicker Park has a different feel than Logan Square, but they're pretty close together, but it's just different neighborhoods have different identities, feelings. Even like people that live there, they identify like with that neighborhood and like kind of like dress or embody that neighborhood as well. I would say.
It's a fun part about the city, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's so many different neighborhoods with all their unique identities. It's just great to have the Chicago Coffee app.
Yeah, and I would say, and that's great that you mentioned that, because as an Uber driver, like I mentioned, born and raised from Chicago, and I started driving Uber, and on the Uber platform, so many people kept asking like, "What's Chicago like?" And I've been over 15,000 trips on the Uber platform, and people kept asking like, "Oh, what's this community like? Or what's that community like?" I see that you guys got 77 communities. Like, it's a big city. It's a small but big city. And as Kendall was mentioning, yes, every block is different, and from, it's different from Ravenswood, Inglewood, everything is different. And it's just still that one block, Ashland, though. That's what's pretty cool, because you can take Ashland from north to south. And I think the longest block here in Chicago is Western.
Mm-hmm.
So you can drive down Western to get a different feel from Chicago, a different feel in the city. And you're still in the same city, so that's a great opportunity that can mention that. But with the Chicago Coffee app, as an Uber driver, I've noticed so many people kept asking on their way to the office or to work, and in the morning time they haven't had their coffee, so they were like, "Hey, can you pull over to this coffee shop right here?" I don't want to mention the name, but they like, "Hey, can you pull over to this coffee shop right here? I want to run in and get a cup of coffee. In fact, would you like a coffee as well?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I'm thinking like, wow, this is a great job. I'm meeting people. They asking about the city that I grew up in. They giving me free coffee. And so when I've noticed that people kept asking for a cup of coffee, I was like, man, what can I do to bridge Uber and a coffee company here in the city of Chicago? How can I marry those two? All right. And and this is before I met Kendall, but I just always had that idea in the back of my mind. And then once I met Kendall, we kind of took it on to the next level. I came into it like, man, I had this idea about, connecting coffee and for the passengers that I'm picking up. And I was like, let's create a survey. Let's see if people will really like this. And so, or really, what coffee do people like? What do they prefer? And people kept so I add it was like one coffee, I've just said one, it was Starbucks, one, it was Dunkin' Donuts, and then the other one, we just said local coffee. And I kid you not, 9 out of 10 times, and we went through the went through the surveys, and over 100 people said, 90% of those people said local coffee. And we was like, wow, why do they want local coffee? And so we was like, okay, let's go and visit all these local coffee shops here in Chicago. I mean, we were drinking 8 cups of coffee a day. It was crazy. Like, we had like 8 cups of coffee. You want to tell a story about going to different local coffee shops and kind of like having our notepad, investigating. And this was in 2016, 2017. So it was like tech wasn't it was always big, but it was kind of getting there.
Yeah.
You want to share the story? Or?
So we went to different coffee shops just with the idea of just asking them if they did they have an order ahead system. And a lot of them in 2016, the best way you could order ahead was by calling in. And it's so, I guess like nowadays there's so many different order ahead options that the thought of just calling ahead is like this, that's so 2000, but like in 2016, like that was the way. And so it's really remarkable to see now that there's so many order ahead options and how quickly everyone's got like acclimated and accustomed to using that.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that all of these coffee shops, these local coffee shops in 2016, were still asking for call aheads if you wanted to order not in the shop. It's interesting. I'm a big coffee drinker. I love drinking local coffee. I want to like go into a shop and like find a new little identity because they're all a little different, right? Like, Starbucks is fine and all, but like I don't need it. I want to see the neighborhood a little bit. I want to invest in, but it's hard for people to get a hold of them because everybody just wants to order off their phone now, whether they want a Starbucks or Foxtrot or whatever around the city. Yeah, you guys are connecting local coffee shops with the Chicago Coffee app. I mean, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You mentioned Foxtrot. We started around the same time Foxtrot started.
Really?
So like around the same time. So we saw it was like, oh wow, this is going to get there. And so we kind of was encouraged by that. And to see, we actually just left the Foxtrot, to see where they are now, we just like, wow, this is it's amazing. It's a great concept of what they're doing and what they're building, and we love to see that the Chicago coffee scene here is getting bigger. Like a lot of local coffee shops are popping up now, like from the north side, the south side, just everywhere throughout the city of Chicago. So we love to see that, and that's great that you mentioned environment, because that's one thing that those major chains are kind of like afraid of, because they like, wow, like it's the environment that most people like in the community that most people like to go travel out through.
Yeah, absolutely. So for coffee shops around the city, how many coffee shops do you guys have on your app right now?
Take a look.
I can take it. So right now we have 5 shops on our app. We wanted to start small to just test the market. We launched in June of this year, so we wanted to just test the market, see how customers were responding, and we've got a really good response from customers. We've got quite a few downloads so far, and people are excited about being able to shop and purchase local, use our app as a way to find different shops and make it a little bit easier for them.
Very good. How long has the app been up and running?
So this is like our third or fourth.
Yeah, it's our third version.
Like we kept relaunching, and as entrepreneurs know, it's like a start and stop, keep relaunching. And so we built out an app, was like a directory. So we was like the investigation that we've done with our pen and pad, where we went around the city of Chicago and started jotting down the address, jotting down their menu, what are their specialty items that they have on a list, what makes them right in the community. And so we put all of that in our app, our directory, manually. So we was putting in addresses, we was putting in like their logo, and typing what the coffee shop is about inside of a directory app called our first version of Checago Coffee app. We launched that in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And we launched that, and from there we noticed people on either Instagram or just even seeing coffee shops being built or being started. In that time, we were like, okay, we really have something here, because people love local and they love coffee, and more importantly, they love Chicago. And so we launched June of this year, the app that we have currently, where you can download the app, Android and iOS. You will see the coffee shop's menu, and where you can click on either a cup of coffee or a breakfast sandwich and go and pick it up in minutes. We just launched that app this year, June.
Interesting. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And I noticed with the app, it's spelled a little differently. It's spelled CHECAGO.
Yeah.
E instead of I in Chicago. What inspired that?
So historically, Chicago was spelled with an E. The original spelling of Chicago is CHECHEGOU. We really liked that E spelling. And, I think so often in Chicago, people do things individually. And so with our app, we wanted it to include everyone in the coffee community. So that E really represented, everyone. Taking that I out and having that E, we kind of say we as well, but it is for everyone in the local Chicago coffee sector.
I like that. E for everyone.
E for everyone.
Can I add a little bit to
Please.
it? So it's also like the modern day trading post, a little history story. So a guy by the name of DuSable created the trading post here in the city of Chicago, actually on Wacker in Michigan at the DuSable Bridge. That's where he created that trading post for the Great Lakes to trade the common goods. So we look at the Chicago Coffee app is a modern day trading post where, we trading a commodity, just coffee. But that's really the concept of it, is to connect the entire city and also pay homage to the guy that was Chicago's first entrepreneur, and create that opportunity for people to have one central location who are traveling to Chicago, or even who's from Chicago, live in Chicago, to give them an opportunity to try everything that Chicago has to offer when it comes to the Chicago coffee community.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
And so, how's the response been from the coffee shop owners that you have gotten onto your app so far? Have they enjoyed, not having to take phone calls now and just getting a quick order off an app?
Yeah, Dashawn, you can say that one.
So when I go into the coffee shops and I tell them about the idea, they love it. And we have some trailblazers on our platform. One by the name of Capri Cafe. They're over on Kazi. And we have Ellipsis in Albany Park. Mm-hmm. Ellipsis we have on our platform.
They're in Edgewater, Rogers Park area.
And then we have Sip and Turtle that is in our platform, Sip and Turtle Cafe. They're more on Milwaukee and Central Park. And then from there,
Logan Square.
So it's Logan Square area. And then we also have Stivers Coffee. They're a roaster. They've been roasting here in Chicago for close to 40 years. So they're on our platform as well, just shipping out coffee beans and roasted coffee, roasted peanuts, you name it, they can roast anything. But they love the idea of someone building a community for people to have a one-stop shop to find them. Now, of course, you have apps such as Grubhub, Uber Eats, and that nature, and they're really great apps and platform. But our goal was to really focus on the community and help the community of coffee. I mean, because there's things that takes place in the community of coffee, like a throwdown, which is like an after-hour party at a cafe, and people want to get involved into that community, or people want to learn a little bit more about the community because people love coffee, and our goal is to highlight that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kendall, if a local coffee shop wants to get on your app, how would they go about that?
Contacting us directly is the best way to get on our app. You can also go to our website, but honestly, just contacting us directly. We're super reachable through our Instagram page. So if you go to Instagram, Checago Coffee app, CheCago Coffee app, you'll be able to find us really easy. Shoot us a DM. I think that's honestly the best way to get a hold of us.
Oh, great. And on the app, what are some of the benefits for customers other than just getting connected with their local coffee shop community, Dashawn?
Well, the biggest benefit is, so we have a rewards program. Mm-hmm. And in our rewards program, you earn your way to free coffee, not only from just that one coffee shop, but on all those coffee shops that are on our platform. So if you order a cup of coffee on a platform from, like, let's say Ellipsis, and you never tried Sip and Turtle, right, you'll have the opportunity to go and try Sip and Turtle for free based on your rewards points that you collected over time. So that's really the biggest benefit. And also, you don't necessarily have to search for your cup of coffee or, where's the nearest local coffee shop, because in our app, as soon as you open up the app, it shows you exactly where that local coffee shop is at in your area at the time. Let's say if you downtown Chicago, you'll find a local coffee shop. And I forgot to mention Topeka Cafe. Topeka, yeah. So and that's their recent. They recently just got onto the app, Checago Coffee app. Topeka Cafe had this black belt barista. I mean, this guy can pour a latte art or pour a cup of coffee. Like, he's from Venezuela, so he take coffee serious. A really great guy, a famous barista by the name of Daniel, and he can pour like. He can put a rabbit in the cup. He can put, like, if there's downtown a seahorse. You can put you with wings. You can put a photo of you, your grandma, your aunt, everybody inside the cup. Like this, no stencil, like really freehand pouring. And they're on our platform. So really, the biggest benefit is having a local coffee shop at your disposal, at your fingertip. But not only just one, but all of them, and coffee focused only. So that's really the biggest benefit.
That's a wonderful feature for coffee drinkers, especially myself. I love drinking local coffee, like you just talked about, but it's hard to find on Google Maps sometimes or something like that. They don't just it doesn't pop up, the chains pop up maybe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Kendall, I don't know if you want to talk a little more about that, but
I think that's like a big issue. When we search like coffee near me on Google, you'll find 7-Eleven, McDonald's, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, your local gas station. So I mean, yes, everybody sells coffee, but we want to really segment and say the quality coffee, the coffee that's local, unique, that you're going to get that experience. And so that's really what makes us a little bit different, is that we make it easier for people to just go to one place. It's a trusted source of quality coffee shops. If they're on the app that you're going to get latte art. It's going to be a great cup of coffee, and it's going to be somebody in your community. I think that's really important, to really have a relationship of like where you're getting your food from, And so all the shop owners live in Chicago, are from Chicago, or moved to Chicago at some point, but they're here. There's not like, you don't know where it's coming from. They could educate you on where the beans are coming from. So I think just having that relationship and that education with, your coffee, your food, is really important. And that's something that you get on the Chicago Coffee app is that relationship building. And it's a trusted source of quality coffee shops.
Yeah, because we're like bridging Chicago in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So shout out to the podcast. Thank you guys for having us on Chicago Coffee app team. We're bridging Chicago because in every local, every community, there's a local coffee shop. And we want to highlight that coffee shop and drive more business to that coffee shop and get those people more involved into that community.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys talk so much about community and your drive to bring people together. What have you guys found about in your research that coffee brings people together? It seems to be that something like you said, like there's the after-hour parties that happen at some of these local coffee shops occasionally. Like, what is it about coffee shops that really bring people together?
I can take that first.
Yeah.
So I think when you think about, a coffee shop, there's so many different activities that happen in the coffee shop. You go there for work, you go there to meet people for meetings, you go there just to have, a moment alone, just enjoy your coffee. And so it's different than if you're going to, let's say, like a pizza joint. Pizza joint is like very specific, like dinner time. But coffee has a community aspect to it where it's like you go, it's a meeting ground. Like you come there for different places and you hang out for a long period of time. They have the Wi-Fi there for you. So it's a place where people from all walks of life come to meet. And so I think that's what's different about coffee shops. And there's over 200 in Chicago. So they're well immersed in the different communities. And I think that's like this the major difference again. It's just that with coffee shops, it's not just a place where you just kind of like go in and go out. Of course you can, but it's a place where you come, sit down, and you can do different things, work, meet people, have a book and a cup of coffee. It's that type of aspect, I think.
It brings people together.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's true.
And have you guys made any like sort of efforts to bring in minority-owned coffee shops together or onto the app, or are they all minority-owned? I don't know.
Yeah. When you think about it, they are all. Yeah, and even our team is, we're just a collective, diverse team that's building this app. And it's going to take Chicago for this to see, because it's a journey. It's a journey. It's a marathon. It's something that will continue to live here forever. I mean, Chicago will always be here. Coffee will always be here. And so, in that aspect, it is something that's going to take all of Chicago. So whether it's minority owned, like Capri Cafe is a woman-owned business that's really great, minority owned. And,
So is Ellipsis.
Ellipsis minority owned. Stivers is minority owned. And then even us, so it's really going to take all of Chicago, in a sense, whether you're an individual that's non-minority, right? Mm-hmm. It's just going to take everybody to be, and that's really, as we mentioned before, is to eat. Like, we really want Chicago to get behind this. Mm-hmm. And Chicago has been very, very supportive. If I can, shout out to World Business Chicago. If you guys haven't heard of World Business Chicago, they're a company that helps entrepreneurs such as ourselves and also the cafes that we have on our platform. So it's really Chicago is just helping us out. Chicago is bridging the gap for entrepreneurs to meet one another, to do business with one another. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. Yeah.
Wonderful. You've talked about being an entrepreneur, Dashawn. A lot of people that come on this podcast are entrepreneurs, and you talk about how important family life is in supporting them in the journeys of being an entrepreneur. Do you guys want to talk about how your guys' families have supported the Chicago Coffee app?
Yes, so we started a Kickstarter. It was in 2018. So we started Kickstarter. And Kickstarters, I think only 25% are successful.
25% are successful,
And so our family showed up. Our family, whether it's a church family, our family as far as our bloodline family, everybody that knew us showed up to make sure that we were successful. And we raised $10,000 in like 30 days. Like that was our goal, to help build out our app, our Checago Coffee app, the second version, the third version, I believe so. And so our family supported it. They really supported it in a time where it's like we're building who we are as an individual. Because at the time, we was like 24, 25 at the time. So I mean, it's fairly young. It's like fresh out of college and that, things of that nature. And no one questioned it. They was just like, hey, that's what you're doing. We're going to support that. Oh, we see what we're supporting. And that's why we did the Kickstarter, to show them exactly what we're doing with videos, with different products that they can buy into. And we nailed it. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. We had a hiccup while doing Kickstarter. Kendall, if you're comfortable with Shan, I know it was her baby, her car. So, I mean, when you're going out and you're trying to do like something amazing or just like incredible, right? The best thing that you're trying to do in your life, a roadblock get thrown. And one of the roadblocks that we had to come across was a car accident.
Yeah.
So Kendall was in the car accident during that time of raising money and Kickstarter. And it was kind of troubling. We was like, wow, we almost at the finish line to hit our goal, and then bam, we was down for like a couple weeks, with the car accident. But she survived it and came out with with like a scratch on, literally just like a scratch on the wrist, and yeah, so. All in all, family supported from Chicago to Ohio.
Yeah.
So
I can say something about the Ohio part. My family has been like really supportive. My Ohio family has been really supportive. My mom and dad are the first people like that I pitched to. So we've done numerous pitch competitions, and so they're like, hey mom, let's try this different pitch idea. Like, what do you think? Grill me like an investor would, or things like that, and. They'll tell me like it is, like, I have some questions about this, and maybe you should consider changing this. My dad was a executive manager at Honda for a long period of time, and so he has some of that more corporate experience where he can really speak to like how people want to hear things. And so they're again like the first people we talk to when we want to like pitch a new idea or something like that, and they've been super supportive of us. My dad is like the first person that likes all of our Instagram posts and things like that. So family has been really supportive, and we're just grateful that they have trusted us and just been along for this journey.
It's good to have loved ones to put you through the Shark Tank.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like when you watch Shark Tank, everybody's an investor. They have those investor questions. So shout out to the family in Ohio.
That's wonderful. I want to ask a little bit more about the app. Obviously, you can find local coffee shops on it. Does it offer anything else? I thought I saw you could buy a bag of coffee beans on it, right?
Yeah, definitely. So our app is kind of like an e-commerce and also order ahead app as well. So on the app, you're able to order ahead at little coffee shops. You're also able to purchase coffee beans, t-shirts, mugs, and have them shipped to you. So some people prefer to brew their coffee at home, and we understand that. And so we allow for them to be able to have their coffee shipped to them so they can brew it at home how they like it as well.
Wonderful.
Can I mention one more thing? We have community news on the app as well.
Nice.
And community news is big because let's say if you're an individual that loves to drink your cup of coffee while reading the newspaper, that was the concept of the community news element on our app. And now even newspapers has one digital. Like I don't even think some newspaper companies are not even printing out actual paper no more. They all digital. They all online. And so our goal is we didn't want to leave no one out the loop or out the scoop of what's taking place in the city of Chicago. So our goal is to put all of these news outlets inside of the app, and that you can use that as a channel to just go from ABC to the Tribe to Bred to Reader. So all of these, and even coffee as well. We have Coffee Magazine. Is it called
the Roast Magazine?
No, I don't want to mess up the name. Sprudge. Yeah. So Sprudge is in the app. So we have these people in the app, so we can keep everyone in the loop, whether it's learn about what's taking place with local news and also learn about the coffee scene here just in general, not just only Chicago, but just the coffee scene. So that's our element. The order and ahead function, where you can order a cup of coffee or order breakfast en route to your destination.
So before we wrap up, I have one more question to ask you guys. How do you take your coffee?
Great question. My favorite coffee is a dirty chai latte, which is chai tea with a shot of espresso and then some steamed milk. It's my go-to.
Yeah, my go-to is a mocha. I love mocha. Mocha is basically chocolate flavored or chocolate served with espresso and then oat milk. Oat milk is like huge right now. I've always loved oat milk, and of course it has to have latte art in it. I would say that, and I want it hot, and I think that's my go-to right there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, Kendall, Dashawn, thank you for coming out, wonderful time learning about the Checago Coffee app.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Bridging Chicago. Be sure to visit us at www.bridgingchicago.com and check out all our episodes and ways to connect with us and our guests. You can visit us on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, where our handle is Bridging Chicago. And be sure to download the Checago Coffee app. That's Chicago with an E instead of an I. And visit them on Instagram and their handle, the Checago Coffee app. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Bridging Chicago, as produced by the SATC Solutions Center. Nothing contained in this podcast shall constitute financial, investment, legal, and/or professional advice. No professional relationship of any kind is created between you and the podcast host or guest. You are urged to speak with your financial, investment, or legal advisors before making any investment or legal decisions. Furthermore, the opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of SATC Solutions Center, SATC Law, or any of its employees. This podcast is created by the hosts and guests' individual capacities. All opinions on this podcast are or have been rendered based on specific facts, under certain conditions, and are subject to certain assumptions and may not and should not be used or relied upon for any other purpose, including, but not limited to, or use in or in connection with any investment purposes or legal proceeding.